Thank you and good evening and welcome to the Thursday, February 27th, 2025, Scituate Planning Board meeting being held here in the select board hearing room. We're on Zoom and all that kind of stuff. We have a posted agenda. Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Burbine, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to take a, we have to take a
Roll call.
roll call vote for Steve's done, yeah. So we need a roll call vote.
Okay.
So you have to ask.
And I'm sorry, I was getting set up. What are we on
We're
the
accepting the
agenda?
agenda.
Okay. So Mr. Lavia,
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Pritchard,
Yes.
Ms. Burbine.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert.
Yes.
You have a unanimous roll call vote.
Thank you. At 6:30 p.m., we have a continued public hearing of the site plan administrative review and a stormwater permit for a multi-family building in the Village Center and Neighborhood District, otherwise known as North Scituate 340 Gannett Road. Welcome. Tell us what's new.
We're just gonna grab our mic.
Sure. Oh, well, we don't.
I have one right here.
Good evening, for the record, Gregory Morris, registered engineer, also with me, Jamie Kelleher, Team Architects, and Steve Yorkland, developer. Second public hearing for the multifamily building at 340 Green Road. I'm bringing you up to speed, and then we'll jump into traffic, which I think is going to be our primary discussion tonight, if I understand. Since the last meeting, civil engineering drawings have been updated. We provided a response to Mr. Chessia's first round of peer review. Our plans were submitted February 5th, 2025 is our revision date. The revisions that we made, we eliminated 2 parking spaces in that parking lot from this location right here. We relocated the transformer that used to be on the side of the building to that location. We've updated the landscaping plans.
Right, where is that location? Where is that?
Where those 2 parking spaces were. Okay, so we eliminated 2 parking spaces and put the transformer pad in their location. We updated our landscaping plans with Hawk Design to provide additional landscape buffer around the transformer pad and along the abutting property lines to the east with the abutter as well as to the north. We revised the grading over the septic system. The septic system, as you recall, is in the back portion of the lot here. We've submitted the septic system design to the Board of Health for its review and approval. We made several revisions to the drainage at the site. We had originally 1 drainage system in the back under the parking lot. We've broken that drainage system into 2 slightly smaller systems, both in the back parking lot as you can see here. Each has a catch basin, a particle separator, and then a subsurface dry well system. We've provided 2 overflows from that system, piped connections down to Gannett Road. We've added 2 catch basins at the entrance of the site driveway at Gannett Road to prevent surface water from the driveway going out onto Gannett Road. We discussed the connections with DPW. You've received a memo, and I think a second memo just came in tonight, documenting that we're sending less water to Gannett Road and it's of a higher quality than goes there currently. They agreed that as long as we work with them regarding the construction standards in Gannett Road, they're amenable to the connections. The fire, we added a second fire hydrant at this back island right here at the request of the fire department. You'll recall we were also replacing an existing hydrant that's immediately in front of the building being fully sprinkled as well. We performed a swept path traffic analysis using the HP 100 ladder truck, which is the town of Scituate's ladder truck, which can come up and go around the parking lot uninterrupted. That was submitted as well. Since the last meeting, Jamie's been to the design review board. He will give you the updates architecturally.
Excuse me. Where are you putting snow?
Sure, we have a designated snow area at the parking. Yeah. Here we have this along the entire back of the parking lot is a designated snow storage area. It all drains back onto the parking lot, so we go through the drainage system.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
I think you wanna do traffic. Should we do traffic?
Jump to
first?
traffic?
I think we wanna do traffic.
Sure.
Is, Mr. Thornton is here. Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. So why don't we do traffic, so that seems to be about the big truck. Would you want to do your analysis? of this traffic?
No, let them move first.
Never mind, I get it. Okay, Mr. Thornton?
Try and unmute, Scott.
Oh, you're all set.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can, thank you.
Yes.
That's great. I can't clear video. I'm not being allowed to do that, but I can still go through the traffic study that we prepared. So thanks for having us here. Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates presenting the traffic study for the project. And it was really, a standard traffic study prepared in accordance with Mass DOT guidelines and what the town of Scituate typically looks for. In terms of the overall process, we did traffic counts at a number of locations. We identified existing conditions, looked at future traffic volume conditions projecting out into the future 7 years, estimated trip generation for the development, and did a capacity analysis of the study area intersections. So in terms of the scope, we like to look at the Mass DOT criteria for inclusion of an intersection in a traffic study. And that criteria is for a 5% increase. If a development would have a 5% increase or a 100 trip per hour increase at an intersection, then it should be studied. In this case, we don't have that type of traffic generation expected with this development. We're looking at 10 trips in the morning and 13 trips in the evening. So we look at the immediate locations or any critical locations in the vicinity of the site, which for us, we looked at the site driveways and the intersection of Countryway, Gannett Road, and Henry Turner Bailey Road. We did counts in February and December. Those were adjusted as needed for seasonal factors. We looked at crash data, pedestrian bike facilities. We looked at public transit data. We looked at speed data, and we looked at site distances. In general, the crash rates were below state averages. We found adequate site distance available at the site driveways. In terms of future growth, we did a projection out to 7 years. We checked with the town to find out what background developments should be included in future growth calculations, and only one came to the forefront. That was the 817 Countryway development. In terms of the trip generation for the site, as I mentioned, we're looking at 10 trips in the morning, 13 trips in the evening based on ITE trip generation data. The site presently generates some traffic. So when we look at those types of numbers compared to what's there existing, in some cases, we were showing a negative number for the post-development condition. Most traffic was directed towards Henry Turner Bailey Road, but in terms of the level of service, really no change in operations. We also replied to a peer review letter of January 9th, and there were 11 comments on the traffic study. We provided responses in our letter of February 5th. I believe peer review is satisfied. Haven't heard anything more from the peer review consultant on the traffic study or the responses. So I think that's where we're at. That's a brief summary of traffic.
Thank you. That's it.
Was Mordecai Lincoln included in this? Because I know that the residents of Mordecai Lincoln are extremely concerned about traffic. And Mordecai Lincoln is being used when traffic is backed up because of the train going up Mordecai Lincoln to avoid the traffic light. Was that indicated in any of what you've done, Mr. Thornton?
Yeah, we did not look at the Mordecai Lincoln Road connection. You know, in terms of the train, it's got a frequency of somewhere between 57 and 150 minutes, so it doesn't come through that regularly. But in terms of any traffic increase due to the project on Mordecai Lincoln Road, I mean, even if all 10 trips in the morning, for instance, were to use Mordecai Lincoln, that's 10 trips over the course of an hour. I mean, it's just not that significant of an impact.
Tell that to the neighbors.
Well, like I said, and I think that that's really not part of our purview, it's, that's the street, right, in the DPW, right? That's-
No, I mean, let's let our peer review
So-
respond to that.
All right. Well, you're up. Hi, can you tell us who you are, please?
Thank you, sure. For the record, my name is Greg Lucas. I am Bond. We did the traffic peer review for this project, reviewing this study that was prepared by Manass and Associates, and also looked at the site plans. And so, as Mr. Thornton mentioned, we had prepared a letter with a number of comments. They provided responses for those, and we've had an opportunity to go through and review those comments, and generally found their responses to be acceptable. Specific to the issue of Mordecai Lincoln Road, that was a question that was brought up to ask whether it was something they had considered, and the response, which is accurate, is similar to what Mr. Thornton just said, is that there isn't a lot of trips coming of the trips, the 10 and the 13, 10 in the morning, 13 in the afternoon, that are generated by the site. Only some of those are exiting trips, and even fewer of those are distributed to the north. So that would be going to the intersection, looking to turn right on the country way. That in the instance where the train is, the signal, all you push to stop because the train's coming, the train's sitting at the station, those vehicles may use Mordecai Lincoln Road, just like vehicles do today, just like drivers do today. It's a function, from my opinion, it's a function of the train, it's a function of the existing operation. And the way that the site trips would contribute to that is very minimal. It's not a lot of trips, and so it would only be if those trips, those vehicles exiting the site, happen to come at a time when the train is crossing and the signal is stopped.
Well, aren't we hoping everybody walks to the train if they're in that situation?
Yeah, we are.
That's the deal.
Well, and that's another good point, is that, the trip generation that was done makes no reduction, nor should they really, for the proximity of the train. Those are things that we do in more urban settings where the location of the development is aimed towards transit, aimed towards people that would use that train. In this instance, to be conservative, we assume that all the people that are leaving the site are getting in their car and going to commuting to work. So they look at the existing travel patterns to determine which roads they'll use, which ways they'll travel to the intersection, and in our opinion, that's all that accurate.
Any questions for the board? No. Anybody in the room have a comment? Hi, could you please identify yourself as the campus?
Yeah, Peter Samblom, 16 Mordecai Lincoln. And so, to say that it's not gonna have, I don't think this one project is gonna have a major impact. But it's just, I think Mr. Thornton and this gentleman here, their theories are flawed a little bit because it's just not when the train comes in. It's busy times, the lights are not right. I sat yesterday at 7:30 coming from Cohasset to get to Mordecai Lincoln and no traffic, and I sat there at the light for 1 minute and 32 seconds. And I kept going back and forth, backing up, trying to trip it. So I think it's an issue, I think the light's a problem, And I think it might be bigger than we have here in this room, but I think it's something that the T has to look at a little bit. There's definitely, you know, a lot more traffic going down Mordecai Lincoln than, you know, these individuals are letting it to believe. I walk my dogs every day. And I think I'm beginning the process to speak with Kevin at DPW, because I know I've suggested a couple of things with speed humps, and it was just dismissed out of hand. So I'm trying to meet with him. I'm waiting for a call back. I'm waiting to meet with Mr. Boudreau, and I'm gonna plan on meeting with the select people as well, whatever we call them these days. Select board. Because I think we have 817, we have 340, we have beer garden potentially going in at Jamie's. You know, as soon as, you know, 7-year plan to only include 817 is, I think, a little myopic, because there are a lot of other plans that are in the works. And as a town, I think the onus is on the boards to be thinking ahead as, you know, sewer is gonna be going in, and whoever owns Scituate Pharmacy and those buildings, they're gonna go up, or try to go up. You have the guy that owns the post office in Wilbur's or Dribbles. That building's coming down, and there's gonna be a significant impact in traffic. So that backup on Mordecai, or the backup towards the old Gates and McBrien's is gonna get greater and greater. And so I don't think Steve and Doug's project is gonna have a major impact, but I'm gonna keep showing up for these meetings, I'm gonna go to traffic, I'm gonna go and keep coming. The rest of the neighbors aren't here, but I'm gonna keep coming, because there's 16, 17 young kids, couple kids with autism, and literally, maybe it's not 40 miles an hour, but 30 miles an hour is way too fast on that street. And, you know, I've suggested, and I did in this meeting, and I'm saying it again, the speed humps, and I know Kevin doesn't like them, but Boston is putting in about 5,000. They've actually taken some out of Faulkner Hospital, and the first reaction to that is, oh, they're not working. No, they're working because they're slowing the traffic and the ambulances down too much, that they had to take them away from the hospital because people were dying because they were going too slow. And that's all we're asking on Mordecai Lincoln, is we know there's gonna be increased traffic over the years, there has been since I've been there since 2001, but we're trying to find a way to work with the town just to slow things down a little bit. You know, I go 19 miles an hour and under, and I irritate a lot of people. And I get the, you know, when I show my age, the Larry Glick salute a lot of times. When I jump up in front of cars, you know, and do that when I'm walking my dogs, just to slow people down. But rather it be me and they get mad at me than this 7-year-old autistic boy that looks like he's 14 because he's very big, that doesn't understand he can't run into the street because someone's gonna be coming down at even 30 miles an hour.
So your comments are duly noted, and those issues have been raised by Ms. Lewis a great deal about the traffic and the like. So, Ann is in the street, and she has
And
brought this up.
I brought it up to traffic rules, and you're right about the lights. And I've seen it backed all the way down past McBrien's. A lot of it is the train, and oftentimes that train seems to move a herd of turtles through that intersection. And, you know, you just like them to step on the gas a little bit and move a little further. And they'll still be at the station and the gates are down and nobody's moving. That's the MBTA. That's who that is.
So we will try to open a discussion at some point with them,
Right.
because it is a huge issue.
It is an issue.
And I have been in touch with the state rep and state senator just the past 2 weeks to talk about that, and can we open some kind of conversation? So, I live in the West End, but I spend all my time in Minot. I'm stuck at that light. I know how to run down Hollis Street now, but
Yes.
there are ways around. But I've lived here a lot longer than this, so I know a lot of the shortcuts.
And I've been in North Situate as a business owner for 34 years.
Yes, Karen.
And
Yeah.
And I agree with the speed bumps. There's one at the library, but the head of DPW doesn't like them. And that is truly unfortunate. And maybe that's something that you and your neighbors could work on.
Well, that's good, and I've spoken with Aaron, and I can't think of his last name, Cutler, you know, and he says he doesn't know him very well, but, you know, that's why I'm going to Jim, and, you know, he reports to Jim, and that ultimately, so I just, what disappoints me as a taxpayer and as a resident of Mordecai Lincoln, that it just seems that one person is unilaterally making a decision because of potentially, in my opinion, a lack of understanding of what we're asking for. I mean, even Hull has one out in front of the gun rack, the old gun rack. You know, it's designed and, you know, someone mentioned to me the other day, well, the plows can't go 30 miles an hour down the street. Well, the plows shouldn't be going 30 miles an hour down Mordecai Lincoln anyways. You know, it's designed to make traffic go about 20 miles an hour if it's done properly. And I think that's at the state speed. And the other thing I mentioned to somebody today was, you know, in the traffic and safety committee meeting that we were at about a month ago, you know, well, if we do it for one neighborhood, we have to do it for all. But if you look at the train and the impact, there's only one street like Mordecai Lincoln in the town of Scituate. You know, you go across Beaver Dam, you go down across Holland. There's no way to Mickey Mouse around and go around. But Mordecai Lincoln, from there, it's the oh crap moment. I'm gonna get stuck at the train. I gotta go. And I thought today, there was probably on my walk, and I walked back and forth, so 4 times. And there were probably about 10 cars in that half hour. And I thought most of them would be from Cohasset, and I grew up in Cohasset. But actually, 7 of the 10 today had Scituate stickers on it, and none of them were my neighbors. So, I mean, it's a known, if they're going down to, you know, Cohasset to the shops or getting a haircut or whatever, they're, you know, people are doing it on a regular basis. And so I just want to bring, hopefully, calm, which I usually, I can have a tendency of not being calm, so I'm proud of myself tonight. You know, but just to kind of advocate and make enough noise that it's not lost on as the town develops, you know, in North Scituate, because it's gonna be a growing problem, there's gonna be more volume, there's gonna be a lot more people, it's gonna turn into, you know, my kids used to call it, you know, they lived in the city, because we were living in North Scituate growing up. I mean, it's really gonna become that way when you have 3- and 4-story buildings lining the street.
Your comments are duly noted and shared by the board. Yes, Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something you said about other projects should be considered. Well, there's a certain way to do traffic studies. You can't include stuff that hasn't been submitted. So even though somebody's contemplating a development that you know of, it hasn't been submitted, so therefore they don't include it in their traffic study. They have to follow strict rules on how traffic studies are done. So the next person coming along is gonna have to consider this traffic and other stuff.
And I noted that within that 7-year window, they can only do 817 and 340, and I get that. But what I'm asking you as an employee of the town, and I'm asking these people as volunteers of the town that are empowered to think long-term as well as short-term, what I'm asking you is to be a little more, you know, forward-thinking on things. You're gonna approve things, but you gotta say, you know, based upon today, I get that. But the discussions really have to be, it can't be the oh crap moment, we got ourselves into this mess, now we gotta fix it, because you're gonna spend twice as much money. And you mentioned in a meeting, what do you expect us to do, spend $100,000 on a study? I mean, that was your response about a month ago in the traffic meeting. Well, quite frankly, how many millions of dollars have we spent, you know, planning schools and planning, you know, sewers and things like that, millions and millions of dollars. You know, what we're asking is our neighborhood's being impacted, and what I'm asking is, for the neighbors, is just be mindful of the situation we may be creating.
And we are. You need to believe
I'm not sure if she necessarily is.
Yes, she is. Absolutely, she is. Absolutely. A lot of stuff coming at us all at once. I mean, sometimes say things in the heat of the moment that you don't really believe, but we absolutely, all of us agree that there is, we know there's going to be a lot of traffic. It is, everything changes. Mr. Pritchard, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, 2 things. One is that I generally agree with both of the consultants that, you know, for this particular project, I think I think they've addressed the traffic issues. I don't know who the person who was talking was, but I also agree that to evaluate traffic over a 7-year horizon with just what's in the hopper is short-sighted, and that from a town perspective, if we expect significant developments in the North Scituate area, at some point we ought to look at it more holistically and what the development might look like over the next 7 to 10 years. I mean, we're zoning the area as a transit-oriented area with denser populations there. And so I think, that's a longer-term planning issue. But I do think, and I don't think it changes the study that the applicants have done. But I do think it's something that should be on the town's plate in terms of evaluating the long-term sort of traffic impacts of significant growth in North Scituate.
Thank you. Does anyone comment?
Sure, I'd like to make just a quick comment.
Yes.
I think in due respect to Peter,
Tell us what you want.
Steve Bjorkman, here working with Doug Sharon to facilitate the permit on this. I'm aware of the issues that are going on Mordecai Lincoln Road, and I had suggested to him, go to traffic rules and regs, go to the selectmen, do all the things that he was just mentioning. And there is a problem there. There's no doubt about it, there's a problem. I think that mostly, from what I can see, the problem is up there from the times I've gone up the road, isn't so much the volume as it is the speed. And the speed is an issue that the Scituate police should be taking care of. And for one reason or another, they're just not up there enough, and people figure that's the way to go. So I think that's the major issue. If there were a few more cars going up there, they were going slow, everybody would be safe. So it's not a situation where just because the cars are going up there, it's an issue, it's the speed, without any question.
And to you, sir, this has been a discussion for at least 20 years that I know of. That literally making it one way, two ways. This has been a long-term issue that the town as a whole has got to address. So we'll just have to force the issue, that's all. At some way.
And I think the gentleman on the screen, with the changes of the zoning bylaws 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it ratchets up. And I think it was irresponsible for the town to make those changes without allocating potential resources to study that and have a 7 to 10 year plan. And and for Steve, I mean, he knows, I support what they're trying to do. They've been great neighbors. Doug's been fantastic since he bought the property, dealing with me and my neighbor Brian, and they're bending over backwards to make it right for us. So, and I would never, and I realize that the plans have to be done project by project, but I think hopefully we move the ball down the field a little bit tonight by getting more forward thinking and more holistic.
Unfortunately, we are under some unfunded mandates from the state, and that's really what happens. Yes,
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say that the density did not increase that much in North Scituate from the village business overlay district. It was zoned multifamily way back in 2006 when the village business came in after the train came in. The density only increased a little bit more. I have talked to the police chief. I will have another conversation with the police chief about asking if there can be more enforcement for traffic on that street. I'll ask again. I have talked to him once during this project already.
So we totally hear you, as there's only so much, unfortunately, we only have one lane on a big street that we can control. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, Mr. Griffith.
I was just gonna say, I think if we're all set with traffic, we probably wanna try and move on with some of the consultants here onto the other.
Why don't you just come up and run
There we
me,
go.
folks?
Yeah, I was trying to move it along, that's all.
Who was that? Carolyn, would you like to speak first? Or Mr.
No,
Chess?
we can go to Jamie for architecture,
Okay.
because there's been considerable, I do have a lot of stuff to say, but we can go to architecture.
David, Jamie Kelleher with Maxim Architects, and we have tried to expedite the design review committee process with, I believe, 4 meetings last month. And so I believe that we have completed that process, but we do not have the recommendations yet. Final meeting was Tuesday. But we do have, I have one for everybody. These are just some additional materials that resulted from those meetings.
You guys even more than my husband when you change.
That I can go through as briefly as possible. So you'll notice from the image on the top, some changes to the colors, which was one of these were the original colors. We didn't have time to do a full rendering, but that's just enough to kind of give you the idea. One of the discussions that came up, I guess in conjunction with the non-conforming peaks that we have here, was that the contrast that we're showing with colors was possibly creating a little more visual impact.
Steve, can you hear him okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
So it was suggested that we explore some different color options that had less contrast and having the white up on those peaks and a darker color in the middle. So we went over a couple different options, and this is getting towards the final result that they felt was a little bit more appropriate for a building this size, to not really stand out as much as some of the brighter white colors. They also felt that it was a better choice to omit the project sign that we had shown on previous rendering and the landscape plan. So we did agree to remove the sign and sort of, do that in different ways as the project moves forward.
Would you mind if
they
I
also-
interrupted for just 1
Sure.
minute? I'm not clear. We haven't received a report from Design Review Committee yet.
Not
Right.
yet, Steve, you just met.
This is
last
just a
night.
summary of
Yep.
what you
Yes.
discussed.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
summarize it, they're gonna
Yep,
work on
I
their
appreciate it.
recommendations.
I just want to be sure. Thank you.
They requested that we provide a street view that kind of showed what this building would look like, in the streetscape that we have there today. Even though this is the older color scheme, this view is taken right from that Mordecai-Lincoln intersection to show how much of a visual impact the building would have, in that sense. So we did that. There was a request to see the building view from the parking side, and that it might need a little bit more detail or accentuation. So we did end up changing the window configuration here. And the entry had a small change where we sort of pushed the door into the building a little bit with some more definition, but it wasn't much. Generally, they just wanted to kind of see the view from this side and what it looked like from that higher perspective there. I won't go too much into the floor plans unless there are any questions after, since we went over that at our previous planning board meeting. Another portion of that street view study was to look at the rooftop mechanical units, which we did discuss potentially moving back towards this side of the building, but generally that the visibility was extremely minimal on the rooftop units, so that sort of satisfied that conversation.
And that's been pinned down definitely. That'll be on the roof.
Correct. We also did a update to the official building height, which you also have in your packet there. So we had Morse Engineering do an official calculation. The average grade around the building came to 27.6 elevation, which brought our building height, which is calculated to midpoint of sloped roof to 31 feet 7, and the total height to 38 feet 9, which both of which are below height allowance of 40 feet. And for the final, I guess most labor intensive discussions we had did have to do with the setback requirement and sort of finding a way that everybody could agree moving forward, that we would evaluate, analyze the step back and calculate non-conforming portions of the building. So where we ended up was we'd previously been sort of including a diagonal line. And it was requested that we take that away, which does sort of make the non-conformance a little more than it was before. But one of the other changes that we made to the way we're calculating the non-conforming piece as a metric was that it should really be calculated as a volume of cubic feet rather than just a surface area on the front elevation. So we did revise this entire analysis, and one of the final requests that they made that they thought would be helpful for them to sort of analyze this was how much of this step back region that you're allowed to occupy did you not occupy. So it's, to recognize that an effort was made to push the building back as much as we could. And in trying to keep with sort of a traditional shingle style design approach, we didn't feel that actually adding a second step to this building, we have the first one really fit with that style of architecture. So in the end, we found that somewhere around 54,000 cubic feet were not used versus about 3,900 cubic feet being non-conforming. Also, the majority of that being these peaks of the dormers and the gable here that kind of contribute to that architectural style that we were going for. And so in the end, the design review committee did decide that that was an acceptable kind of trade-off between the two. And I think that's pretty much a summary of everything that we went through with design review. So,
Steve, do you have any questions?
Sorry, no, I'm good, thank you.
So you might be interested, Steve, this is gonna be a wood-clad building. They're gonna do this all old school, right? It's all gonna be wood.
cedar,
Yeah,
painted,
cedar shingles, yeah,
painted
Cedar claps.
cedar claps, so yeah, they're gonna paint it.
That
Really
looked
old
nice.
school.
So officially for the waiver, the percent of non-conforming volume of these peaks came to 1.1% with that method of calculation.
No, Ms. Burke, any questions?
So on the front, that's on this, like the cover picture, so that's a porch to the right?
It is, yeah, we have an open air porch that's to the right side of this entrance.
So the entrance, that's just an entrance, like a.
Yeah, that takes you into the lower level. And we are required to have, and I think it's kind of a visual thing, we're required to have a front entrance on the street to the building, even though most residents would come in from the parking in the rear, so.
Ms. Burbank, how far back did you push it from the street?
The building is about 15 feet from the road, from the right of way,
To the first floor.
so that's inside of the sidewalk.
12.8 feet
I'm sorry,
was the closest point.
Which,
that's to those posts here.
okay, which enabled you to put more landscaping in the front.
More landscaping as well as we have our accessible route that
Okay.
takes you around and up to this first level, and also then, as we did describe, back at the previous meeting, but we do have this recreational area that goes up the side of the building presents a couple places for seating, but also provides a fully accessible route from sidewalk up to the rear parking lot.
How high is that sidewalk? That curved sidewalk from the ground?
Which
The
one?
elevation?
The elevation?
To the left?
Yeah, to the left.
This one here?
Yes.
Well, this might be a little deceiving, that's a stone wall beside it. There's no drop. Sorry,
Oh,
It's a
okay.
raised wall.
yeah, you're seeing the walkway behind the wall,
Oh,
so that's sort of separating it from the landscape.
That makes a little bit.
Yes.
And are you going to continue the sidewalk down across, where Cersei's is?
What are we doing?
So we have the sidewalk starting at the property line with Cersei's here and running over to the middle of our property and providing a crosswalk across to the recreation path. DPW has asked that we extend it to this property line as well.
Alright.
So we have no problems doing that. Yes, it extends all the way to the Cersei's.
The whole property line right to the gas station?
No, to Cersei's property line. Stops.
There's a parking lot there.
There's no sidewalk continuation from there. Provide,
Just doing it in front of their property.
But then there's a parking lot.
So there's no sidewalk in front of,
No.
Gannett Marketplace, there's no, sidewalk. And there is no possibility as a mitigation to have that sidewalk continue to the gas station.
when we had met originally, we thought it was best to provide a pedestrian crosswalk across the street to get to the recreational path and the sidewalk that already exists on the opposite side of the street. So we are providing a full crosswalk across that street, out of pavers to get across.
It's a little bit strange, I think, what DPW is actually asking for, because they want us to bring it to the east to the property line, and there is no sidewalk that's gonna go down that side of the road, so that's why we left it off. It just went as far as the crosswalk is concerned.
Maybe they know something we don't.
And it's residentially zoned after that, so there's a couple of houses there, but not,
It's thinking in the future,
It's thinking in the
that's what it
future,
is, it's thinking in the future. So Ann, are you asking, are they considering, what other mitigation are they considering? Are they considering mitigation on somebody else's property? Or are they perhaps willing to give a contribution? Is that what you're kind of asking?
I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah, that's what
Really?
you're
thinking of
asking.
the future, do you want the sidewalk to go to the property line? We'll do that.
No, she wants it to go to trees.
Oh, we can't do that.
But the
That's beyond our control, we can do it on,
I just have to go up and take a look at where this is going, where Taj is right now, and where you're gonna put this crosswalk that will go across to the parking lot.
it's going right to the end of the other walk that goes down to the beach.
It connects directly
It's right at
in
the
front
end
of
of
Yeah,
us.
look at
That's
what it said.
We purposely placed it right where the end of the walkway was to go
Okay.
down.
Right, but there is no sidewalk that goes from there. You have to cross the parking lot to pick up the sidewalk in front of the post office.
Yeah, that's a whole different project when that
I
building comes down.
understand, but. Okay,
I don't think we could put people put sidewalks. That's a private parking lot.
I know that. But I'm concerned about, well, I have concerns.
Yeah.
so is this basically the color that we're using? Because there's gonna be a lot of different colors going.
It's moving even as we
close.
speak.
So it's gonna be shaded?
We have cedar, clapboard, shingle, painted. No natural wood.
Plastic or wood here?
Oh, but
I believe he's planning to do all wood, correct? No PVC trim.
Yeah, no PVC trim, all wood, all painted. And again, once they got us away from the white, which I know when you first look at that plane, it really looks different than what we started with. And design review, they basically were saying that they wanted the trim to be closer to the body of the building, so that it kind of meshes together a little bit. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but you said that in the end, before we can receive a building permit, that the actual colors will go back in front of them to have them approve the exact color of the building, but it'll be more along the lines of what you see in front of it.
I have this exact design in my house, it was no longer.
Do you want a new condo?
It is no, it does, it's rotted out. I'm just gonna tell you, you guys do whatever you want, you want. It is.
No, I,
It does- it no longer
she's
looks
talking
like that.
about these the cross, might be good
Oh, yeah.
to PVC those, but that gets into more.
We'll take that into
It's
consideration.
really how you,
Right,
it's how you seal it.
It's your,
It's
it's
how you
your
seal it.
job, I'm just telling you that it is literally.
A
what
bad
I have in my house.
experience.
It's young growth lumber is what's happening with some of the pine trim, but if it's sealed properly and everything that Dougie's doing with pre-pine pine, and if you seal the ends of it after you make the cuts, it doesn't happen quite like if you just put it on and paint it after.
It's lasted 25 years.
There you go.
What about Hardy, that Hardy?
Mr. Shearer doesn't want to be there. He wants to know.
Design review loved it when we said we would go with cedar
It is
flaps,
usable.
and
It
yeah.
is.
Mr. Shearer decided he wanted to go on that trip.
And it'll go away and it'll rot in 10 years down the road.
Well, then the HOA wants, the HOA wants it.
Well, they're right, there is a condo association that'll be associated with it and the
I
maintenance
live
of the
with them right
building.
now, so.
The only question I had was the landscaping. I think you guys talked a little bit about that, just on the sides for the abutters. Was that something that you added more to, or was that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So our, still moving to.
Okay.
Can I go back to the sidewalk, since that was on the table? So here's that so where does the crosswalk go? Like where does it empty to on the other side? Because if you're coming down in front of the post office, it stops, and then there's the opening, then there's a quasi stop, and then you get to 7-Eleven, and then there's no crosswalk until you get to the front door at Anderson Fuel. So does the property on the east side go to all the way in front of Anderson Fuel where you can meet up with that, or is the crosswalk going smack dab in the middle of the 7-Eleven parking lot?
Hold on, Craig, where is that going to?
So where it goes, no good place to stand.
Tell us from the other side of the
This is-
street, tell us where it's gonna end.
This is the crosswalk here, it goes right to the end of the curb cut where the, where Cosmos Cafe is. So 7-Eleven is right here.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a wide open, you can see this island here, and then this is where the curb picks up again for the recreational path. Cosmos is right behind Penn's. So it comes across almost right in line with the Cosmos driveway, so we can pick up that path.
So I guess almost is not exact. Does it go to like the side of the building? Because literally the driveway for Cosmos goes almost within 2 feet of their building. So,
In the front.
so almost, it's like horseshoes and hand
So
grenades.
it goes all the way to the left of that driveway opening.
So it goes, so
Yes.
the crosswalk goes directly in front of the building of Cosmos.
It goes right in front of their driveway.
So
Right in
you're
front of their
abso-
driveway to the left side of their driveway, directly across.
So does it hit the driveway or does it hit the crosswalk?
Hits the driveway.
So
hits
that's
the
a
driveway.
safety issue.
They use that as a handicap parking spot. Inside the building.
Not supposed to.
Huh?
Not supposed to.
Hey, who cares, it's there.
It's not just for gays, but it could go to the end, it could cross. It could cross at the end of the, your lot, would that bring it farther over into Cosmos?
It would bring it further over. The issue is on the other side of the street, there isn't a curb cut, if you will, onto that recreational path. DPW's memo says that any work we do on the street, we have to coordinate with them. We will certainly look at that exact location. And it might slide a couple of feet to the left or right. It will, depending on DPW's final say, but that's the intent.
I suggest you have that as a condition, that it does crosswalk to be field located and approved by, town planner and DPW, so that it's in a safe location. I mean, we've done that on other things, we can do
Because
that here.
as it stands right now, going to where where the driveway is for Cosmos and their door, there is not really a sidewalk, it's a driveway. And there is a sign there that says handicap. And that's where a lot of people park, right there.
Well, you
So,
look into that as we use it all. You have any other comments from anybody?
Well, he was going into landscape.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Greg, I'm sorry. Start with the program.
Yeah, so the majority of the change in the landscape is with respect to the backyard. We did the final septic layout, submitted that to the Board of Health, and what we did with the septic is we kept it 20 feet from the lot line on the east side here. In between that septic system and that lot, we were able to increase the plantings here. I believe these are spruce trees, so they're an evergreen species. We also added, at this location, that's the proposed transformer, we added around the transformer arborvitae plantings around that. And then along the back here, we doubled up a row of plantings along the back for people on Mordecai Lincoln. With those shrubs.
as long as they're deer proof.
Thank you.
I do have a comment on the landscaping. I really am not thrilled with this meadow seed mix that's being shown on the plan. We've had a couple other projects in town that have attempted to use it, and it's not working. It takes a minimum of 3 years to establish, and I'm not sure that you have 3 years for it to establish. I really think that it ought to be rethunk, because really on the other projects, it's not working. We had to take it away from one project, and on another project, they still can't get it. And we've been working on it for a few years now.
Is there a project that something is working on in town?
I don't know, with Meadow Seed Mix, I don't know.
No, what I'm saying is there a project where they have some grasses that are taken off and working well on a project that's been brought in front of the board? Again, I don't think Dougie's gonna care what type of grass is out there. It's,
I'm not really sure, I'm just saying that I think you should,
we can ask the landscape
you
architect
should
if
look
we can
at
try
it
something
because
else.
it's been a problem on several
Yeah,
other
no
projects.
problem.
So that comes from, that comes from 2 projects in the past that just not worked. And then you tried desperately to get it to work, just doesn't.
We just want it to be green.
And we're still holding money on one, so that hopefully we can get it to work.
Yeah, or anything else?
Yeah, I have a look at things. At this point, we don't have any condo documents, so we're waiting for that. The water study has been deemed to be okay and will condition all the things that they want if they're not, even if they're already on the plan, we're still gonna condition them. They just applied to the Board of Health, this week, so, we'll need to find out. I don't recommend the planning board approve the project until you find out if they can get a working septic system. They will extend the sidewalk. We just got more comments late this afternoon on the drainage, from DPW, so they will address that. The parking for the community room. There's 5 spaces allotted for that. Is the board satisfied that that should be enough parking for that community room?
It's a resident community room, it's not something that's open to the public.
Like you can't rent it out or something like that, right?
We did meet with Bob on that as well, because there's nothing specific in the zoning bylaw which tells you this is what you have to have. So he felt as though that was adequate to have the 5 spots.
Bob told me it was up to me.
But it is supported by.
I think that you can support it in the zoning bylaw by using table 2 and saying personal service space, 1 space per 400 square feet. So I think the bylaw can support 5 parking spots.
But if somebody in the residence decides to bring in family, big shower, whatever. They could have a number of people, but then they can park across the street at Buzzing.
Well, there's public parking
That's
down the
right.
street too, the
Yes, there
WBA
is.
parking lot, there's the MBTA parking lot,
Mhm.
so people might just have to walk a little bit.
They could park at the handicap spot over in front of Cosmos.
There you go.
Happy, yeah.
Metro West will be the monitoring agent, and they identified where the two affordable units are.
One on the second and one on the third floor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I'm a little concerned between the wall on the property and the wall on the adjacent property, how that's being handled. It seems like it's just kind of a no man's land. Is that gonna be maintained, et cetera? And I think the second wall should show on the landscape plan.
Retaining walls there.
So, yeah, so there's a wall on the abutters property to the west, right in here. I do show it on the grading and utility plan. Essentially, it's a retaining wall for them, and then the lot line is on between the two properties, and then there's our retaining wall on our side. I did meet with that property owner to see if we could just grade across the property line and tie the two walls together. They were gonna discuss it with their business partner that they own the property with and get back to me. I have not heard back. Potentially, our wall could disappear and it could grade between the two. Otherwise, you will have a valley there that's grass, we call it no man's land, it's
I
vacant
just
space.
don't want it unkept.
Yeah.
I mean, I think thought has to be given to that, so,
About 6 feet.
so that it either has to be planted or something, so it doesn't turn into an ugly eyesore. Those are the type of spaces that can easily turn ugly.
And that happens in that, get marketplaces, get a little unkept back.
They'd be glad to put the same grass in that we put up above, so it's easy to mow and they can just take one shot down there and take care of it.
All right, so, John is here because the documents weren't, submitted in a fully timely manner. John doesn't have his peer review. We will get that shortly. So, I mean, if he wants to say anything, I would ask him.
Mr. Chester, you have anything to tell us now?
I'm gonna get the report out shortly, I think, they've answered, I have gone through it and they've answered, many of the questions. I'm sure that I'm gonna have a few comments. Some of the issues to address is the stormwater thing, because of the way the site lies, you just can't capture it all. In the bylaw, the stormwater bylaw requires a 10 inch. There's no way to catch a full inch because where you put the building close to the road, you can't infiltrate in the front. So that's something that you're gonna have to do. And then the other thing might, is the maximum amount of treatment, whatever, because it does go to a critical area, it does go through. But the town drain does. So I know, there's probably other little things here and there, but those are sort of the bigger issues I think you might have to do.
Is that close?
And have you made, you'll have a sewer stub if and when sewer comes to North Scituate, and hopefully it's like.
Out to the street layout, so that we don't have to dig up anything that we've done, it'll just be
Maybe
working the
not our
street.
lifetime, but somebody's lifetime.
It's somebody's like,
Not ours.
With a wing and a prayer.
Oh, wait a minute, thank you about that. Anything else? Are we all set here?
Well,
Yes, Mr.
if we can, I mean, there are certain waivers that we're asking for, and I think there's 3 of them that are total. We had asked for them originally, and we've worked towards those. I think we explained one which had to do basically with the width of the building, is the amount we have to use up. And we need a small waiver for that because we have a little bit too much frontage. Our building is not big enough or wide enough. And I think that we gave you the solutions. If we had to, we could just cut a little piece of property off the front and our frontage would go down and it wouldn't stop the project. And I think the board at that last meeting, and I think Steve was at that meeting as well, kind of agreed that that's senseless, I think, to cut a little piece off and that the board looked favorably on that waiver. We have a waiver for Metro West that they will not sign any contracts with us until the building is approved. but I've personally had conversations with them. We are gonna use them, they do other stuff in Scituate, so we're gonna have to, in writing, request a waiver to have that done in the future before the building is built. We'll work with Metro West to go over the affordable units. And then the big one, which when we left the last time, was the setback, step back. And again, with a verbal from design review, Patty was there and Karen was there. We know we don't have a written decision, but they said that they are gonna write something in there in favor of granting that waiver to 1.1% or whatever that number was. And it would be great to get a census from the board that those waivers are adequate for this particular project.
Mr. Pritchett.
Yeah, hold on a sec. Oh, I'm on audio. Yeah, I don't have any objections to the waivers.
Ms. Burke. No objection. Ms. Burbine. No objection. Ms. Rose.
I don't have any objections.
Mr. Regatta.
I don't have any objections.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to work with John, obviously, and get the drainage stuff worked out.
I mean, if there has to be a waiver ultimately for drainage, that
Yeah,
definitely
definitely
come back to us, that might, I mean, ultimately, we really don't wanna do that, but they need to try to find a way to work, but if it really can't work, then you have to be going on that.
Yes, so that everybody knows this is a big building in North Scituate. I can't tell you how many colors we looked at, it was like regarding a wedding, it's crazy. But we are working with registered architects, which is such a delight, because they really know what they're talking about. And, what was originally offered to us, we kind of refused, we didn't like all that white. They came back with something that was kind of like something that would be in the Adirondacks. So they kind of, they're working very closely to try to get a color palette that won't be,
In your face.
so intrusive.
It'll blend.
But, well, even as we speak, it's blending, even as we speak.
The longer you look at those colors, the more it makes sense, but I'm colorblind myself.
Oh.
And when I first looked at it, I thought it was absolutely horrible. And then the longer you look at it, it actually looks better. So hopefully when it gets built, it will blend in as people
So
see
they're
the
totally
building.
down the trip a lot because of this introduction to like that. So, all right then, do you have,
So I recommend the continuance, and so everybody's clear, it's the 4 weeks.
Yep.
So I recommend the continuance until April 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Baxter, we need a roll call vote, thank you.
Recording the motion. Mr. Lavadia,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Burbine,
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
and Ms. Lambert,
Yes, Mr.
and
Pritchett.
Mr. Pritchett.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm just gonna change April 10th and continue the time for action till April 25th.
So moved as amended.
second, all in favor? Okay, guys.
No.
Let's see, I don't know if it's so sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That is us.
You just have to sign, I'll fill in with.
All right, so moving right along. At 7:30, we have a continued public hearing for the zoning amendments for the annual town meeting 2020. Oh boy, here we go. So, just so everybody know, we were given mandate, a law has been passed by the governor and the legislation. At the very beginning of August, they will call back for vacation to pass this. We have a really good accessory going into bylaw right now, but we have to make our bylaw mesh with the state bylaw. And we have been working night and day to get this done. I think this is literally the 6th or 7th iteration of this bylaw. I am in possession of a letter from Barbara Buchanan, who lives over on Garden Road. She was, I'm not gonna put the whole letter into the minute, but what it is telling us is that she does not agree with non-owner occupancy. That is something that they are not moving on yet. We still don't have finals, so we'll see where we move on that, but, not that we're not in agreement, but we have to be within the law on that, so, but thank you for your time and your letter, we'll put to the record. Okay, Karen?
All right, so since the last meeting, we had a meeting with town council yesterday. We went over the bylaw. Town council has not been able to get in touch with the attorney general's office yet. They're a little frustrated at that point, but we went over the bylaw and they advised us to stay with all the things that we had in the bylaw. The changes that I made to the bylaw since the last meeting were, I very carefully went through and picked out single-family home and put principal dwelling. Tried to find every place where that, and I think I got that. Removed the word "and" from cooking kitchen facility, so added gross floor area that's in the regulations, which is the same as it's defined pretty much in the 2015 International Building Code. It's not the way the assessors measure things. Assessors measure to the outside wall. This is asking it to be measured from the inside of the exterior wall. So we'll have to delete our existing definition of gross floor area. Let's see.
Districts, or certain neighborhood.
We changed, we changed, a couple of minor wording things. We changed, on number V, 530.2B, we took it out so that you can only have one ADU on lot. We had put in a phrase, if a large ADU is obtained first, protected use ADU is allowed by right, site plan review. And town council thought, at this point, let's just take that out if we find out that since the board just wants one ADU per lot, if we have to put it back in, we'll put it back in at some other point, prior to town meeting. That's pretty much what we did. We tried to did all the changes, that town council had indicated, and we tried to catch, and some of the issues that were raised last time in the last meeting.
And that one really does in the nitty-gritty.
So, we tried to listen to what people had concerns about, but town council firmly believes we are allowed to have site plan review. And so they want us to keep that in here for the time being. I just got some comments this afternoon from Steve Pritchard, who kind of wants to just clarify the definition of accessory dwelling unit large a little bit more. And I think that what he wants to add is reasonable, and it just clarifies an accessory dwelling unit that is a permanent dwelling unit, which is either an attached, detached, or within accessory dwelling located on the same lot as the structure of the principal dwelling, no larger than 40% of the gross square foot of the primary dwelling and greater than 900 square foot, which such large accessory dwelling are allowed only by special permit. So it just adds a little bit more clarification to the large ADU. So I think that's a good, change.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Karen, and I'm not trying to change the meaning. I'm just trying to clarify it so that it's clear during the, when it's finally passed, if you will.
We appreciate the clarification.
I do have a couple of, I don't want to interrupt you, Karen, but I have a couple other things I wanted to raise, but I'll let you finish first.
No, I think I've finished. I mean,
Okay.
Why don't you go with what,
Okay. And I sent these to you, and I will start this out by saying some of what I sent you are just sort of trying to coordinate definitions throughout the body of the document. So I won't go over those. There were probably a few areas that I think we should just discuss. And the first one is 530.1E under the purpose. And I think my suggestion is we put a sunset date on the conversions. And I say that by meaning that this has existed for quite some time to allow people to come in with dwellings that should really be accessory dwellings, but they have not, applied for an application for them. This is now a way to try to address that. But going forward, we shouldn't have anybody creating those and then coming in to try to get legitimate conversions to them after the fact. So my suggestion is that we modify E to say something to the effect that to legitimize conversions of existing dwelling units that are existing on or before January 1, 2025, which dwelling units would have or should have been an accessory dwelling unit in order to enable the town. So I'm just suggesting that we sort of have a sunset date on that purpose, if you will.
And so what you had to feel about that?
So.
Not that they.
I'm a little confused on that, Steve. Could you just?
Yeah. So, well, E was intended to allow people who already had an accessory dwelling but had not filed for such, but had already built one, to come in and legitimize that accessory dwelling by filing for a special permit. In this case, it's really just filing for site approval for most of them, unless they're too big. My suggestion is that's fine, but it's not an open-ended, invitation that anything that's existing as of the first of the year or when this thing gets ratified could still come in and be converted to an accessory dwelling. But after the fact, after this passes, if you will, the intent is not to have somebody in the future create an existing dwelling and then come back in for legitimizing it. That's my point, that there's kind of a hard date.
Well, I think the problem with that, somebody might have one in their home and not really using it. And they're not gonna come in and legitimize it until they're actually using it as an accessory dwelling. Doesn't mean that everything is not sitting there in their own home. So.
Yeah, but you kind of, this has been around for a long time. So you kind of snooze, you lose. If it's an existing accessory, it's not even called an accessory dwelling. It's just a dwelling unit. Right.
I think, again, Steve, you're welcome, but I think the problem is they aren't ADUs as a definition of ADU. They're basically apartments that existed prior to the adoption of the ADU bylaw. And
Yeah, I'm saying existing
you can always
dwellings.
come in and-
I'm saying
and
existing
request-
dwelling units. I'm not saying existing accessory dwelling units. I'm saying existing dwelling units, right? That existed on or before the date of this thing can come in and be legitimized as an accessory dwelling unit.
Then what do we do if they don't?
The same thing we're doing now, which is nothing, right? But at this point, I'm just saying there's not an
I understand
open-ended,
that.
there's not an open-ended waiver forever.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
Just, if I can chime in again here, 'cause I'm spending a lot of time on this bylaw, I mean, a lot of time. If the ones that are what you call illegitimate, that have been here for a long time with no permits, if they qualify in 10 years as an ADU as of right, you can't tell them that they can't turn it into an ADU. But if they're oversized, under the Scituate bylaw, under your special permit process, you then have a chance to take a look at it and regulate it, or say that it's too big, we don't want it to be that big, you need to tone it down some. But the ones that qualify as of right ADUs, doesn't matter when it is, it's not gonna make a difference.
Sure it does, because they still have to come in and apply for site plan review.
Site plan review.
The other problem is if the property changes hands, so now you're cutting off the next person from doing that, so,
No,
Mr. Jones
no,
owns
no.
property.
No, I'm not saying the ownership. I'm just saying the property, right? That's what this is. This is an existing dwelling unit.
If they're gonna legitimize it, they have to come in for the site plan anyways. So
Correct.
you can't, you have to legitimize it now, you can't come in the future and legitimize it, that doesn't make any sense, with all due respect.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no,
if they
no,
come
no,
in,
you're
gonna
missing,
say, we have a parking
No, Steve.
spot, and
You're
my
missing my
septic is
point.
okay, so
You're
I
missing my
now wanna
point.
legitimize it.
you're missing my point.
Yep.
Right? My point is that anything that exists today that we have no clue about, maybe you do, but we have no clue about because nobody's
Okay.
come in on them.
Okay.
Those are existing dwellings, and those can come in and file for site plan review and be converted to accessory dwelling. But
Absolutely.
it is not the intent that 2 years from now, somebody builds a dwelling unit and then they come back in after the fact
Okay.
and apply for accessory dwelling. I'm just saying, this is the deadline, right?
Okay, Steve, I think we were misunderstanding what you're
Yeah.
saying, that's what it was.
No, that's,
You're
that's,
saying,
I'm just saying,
Yes.
this is no longer,
Those, but can I just say?
Sure.
I
Go
wanna
ahead.
make sure I understand what you're saying, Steve. So if it's in that place, if it's already done as of, let's just say, June 30th, 2025, I don't know, if there's a date.
Date of the adoption.
You can come in at any time and legitimize it. But if it's built after that, you can't then come back in and legitimize it.
Correct.
Yes, you
Is that what
can.
I'm saying?
Yes, you
But why
can.
don't we want people to legitimize something
Yeah, this is
that
discouraging.
no, we,
was being bad? I mean,
well, let me tell you
don't we
why,
want people to legitimize any
let
accessory
me-
dwelling?
let me tell you why I say this, okay? Because we do not want people to build accessory dwellings and then come in and ask for forgiveness. We
Yeah.
want them to ask for permission.
It's in the permitting process.
Okay.
It's part of the permitting process.
But, it is part of the permitting process that is not fulfilled, and that's our problem. And so I see where Steve is coming from, and I see where you're coming from. People are building units, which are accessory dwelling units, but when they go to be inspected, they don't quite meet all the regulations until after we, this is
This is a point that was brought up the other
Yeah.
day when we were meeting with town council. And town council and the TA kind of indicated to the building commissioner that perhaps enforcement needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, it was not so subtly said.
No, it's not subtle at all.
Well, there's no enforcement if there's a never-ending perpetual waiver, which is what this is. That's why I'm saying, Let's cut it off. Let's make people come in and ask for permission, because that's how we have the best shot at reviewing an accessory dwelling and make sure it meets the requirements. We're not saying we're not going to approve it. We're just saying it's got to go through the process. And we don't want people building apartments and other kinds of things in knowing that the accessory dwelling unit bylaw is even out there, and just building them and then coming in later, maybe just before they're getting ready to sell it or something, to try to get a legitimate, conversion. So I'm just saying we should have a bright line.
I hear you, yes, Ms. Kasha.
Chris Karsh, 119 Starbridge Road, member of the zoning board. So that part that you're talking about was never intended as a get out of jail free card. That was intended as existing ADUs already on the books to convert to a buy right if they qualify, or, convert to our new regulations. Anything that's built, that's exactly how it was written.
No, not the original bylaw. The original bylaw was like, we didn't even know where they were, right?
He's talking about this phrase.
Yeah, the new one I'm talking about as well. I'm saying, okay,
This phrase has been in the bylaw for a long time. Yeah.
I know, and I'm saying we should sunset it.
I just think that will cause more problems. It reminds me of the bylaw that we had to change, because at one point they said you could only rebuild your homes in 3 years, and then there was all these dilapidated homes out there because they went past the 3 years. So somebody can put it in, it never gets legitimized. Again, the next buyer buys it and they're like, oh my God, this looks like an accessory dwelling. I think I'm gonna go in and try to legitimize it. Are you gonna say no to that person? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I didn't say we were going to say no. I'm saying that the as of right legitimate conversion approach, right, is for existing dwelling units that exist today or exist at the whatever deadline we put in. And I think what we're trying to avoid is what has been going on for decades, is people continue to build accessory dwelling units without permitting them.
But that's enforcement.
It's a different.
No, it's not enforcement. It's not enforcement because we don't know about it. And if it is enforcement, there's no reason we should. If it is enforcement, there's no reason we should then give people a get out of jail free card. Then let the building department enforce it and eliminate this altogether.
So it's only one of the purposes in the purpose section, right?
Right. I'm not saying take any of the other purposes.
One of the other purposes is to create housing, okay? So if I had one, I'd come in and say, I don't want to convert mine, I want to create housing. This is the building I have, and I want to make this legitimate housing. So it's only a purpose, it's not even a requirement. So it doesn't make a difference. It's just one of the things that you.
All right, let's strike it. If it doesn't make a difference, let's strike it out.
Yeah, you're still going to be able to come in, you want the people to come in, but people that
That's what we
have
want.
these apartments didn't have the avenue to come in and do the ADUs years ago, long time ago.
Yes, they did. They've had it.
They have.
Okay, 40
This is
years
like
ago.
20 years, right?
Prior to zoning.
So we had ADUs
In
right when we started zoning?
1989.
Okay, so now we're going back to 89. So anybody before that could have put an apartment in their house.
I did.
Well, now people can come in even after that and legitimize it. It's just one of those purposes. And you're never going to say no to somebody that has the ability to make a legitimate as of right ADU. If they have a parking spot and they have the right access, they should be able to do that no matter when it's done. And you're right, it's just.
No. We want them to come in before they build it. We don't want them to come in after they build it. That's the point.
All right, so I build one tomorrow, okay? It's got 700 square feet. It meets every requirement of an accessory dwelling as of right. What are you gonna tell me?
Well, right now, I can't tell you anything. I have this. I have this.
So I can build it illegally,
It
and I
gives
can
you a
come in and it will
legitimate
be a
conversion.
legitimate ADU.
No, you can't.
And as far as zoning goes, if
No,
I go out
you
there
know.
and I build one of these things tomorrow at my house,
Well, we're not so.
okay?
Yeah, then I'm going to call the
Zoning,
building
okay?
commissioner
I will
and
build it.
say, you should enforce this against this illegal construction.
Perfect.
Right.
Okay, now.
And we're gonna
I come in
take
and I
out
say,
the
I want
legitimate
my
conversion.
SRP.
And we
Go
take
ahead,
out
Mr.
the
Pritchett.
legitimate conversion purpose altogether. And we'll just enforce it.
Yeah.
End of
So,
story.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need it at
That's
all.
okay with
So
me.
does the board wanna take the whole legitimize conversions to enable a town to monitor conversions for code compliance out?
No.
Okay.
Let me take it one step further if I can. Steve, this is only for ADUs that are allowed as a matter of right. So if somebody has an old apartment, okay, and they wanna come in and they're gonna require a special permit, you can approve it or not approve it at that point. But I don't think you're gonna be able to hold back an as of right ADU. So
We
you
should
still
hold
might-
them to the standard of construction that they should be held to. So if they don't conform, yes, under a special permit or under a site plan review, they should conform.
The way this is, what we're saying is that when you drive around town and you see all those lights on and all those garages, you need to go to the zoning enforcement office and say, you know what, here is an illegal accessory dwelling at 219 Beechwood Street in Cohasset, and I want you to enforce that. That's what we're looking for.
So now how does he enforce it?
I don't do so. So
He has to go
He
out
says
and do
come
an
in and get a
inspection.
permit. He says come in and get a permit.
He has to do
Okay,
an
so-
inspection
So
first.
he's gotta do all the inspections, he's gotta do all that stuff, but from a zoning perspective, if it meets the requirements, whether it's illegal or not, okay, he's gonna have a right to come in and have somebody look at it and say, this is an allowed use ADU, you're all set.
Well, we're
Okay.
not going to make it a purpose
It's,
that he can have
I think you should
a,
keep it exactly the way that it is, because I think it
No, I
works the
disagree.
way it is.
Well, we'll
I completely
I
disagree.
need to
I
think
think-
about that. Okay,
I think
okay,
it
so
should
we're gonna
have
to-
either a sunset date or it should be eliminated.
All right, so Steve, what I'm gonna do is because we are gonna close the public hearing tonight, is
Yep.
I will talk to town council about this and ask him about your wording and
Okay,
what
that's fine.
he thinks. And I will let you know at the next meeting, but I will ask about it, because we can still change this bylaw, it's just we're closing the public
I
hearing.
can see both
Yep.
sides of the
I mean, so I will inquire about it.
That's
What
fine.
next, Mr. Pritchett? What else would you like to tell us?
Let's see. I already sent the language to Karen on the change about the definition of large thing. Karen, this is really more editorial than anything. Under like applicability, we talk about accessory dwelling units that are 900 square feet or smaller. We've already defined those, so I'm just suggesting we write A as accessory dwelling units, comma, attached, detached, or within, are allowed by site plan review. And then the second one would be accessory dwelling units large, comma, are allowed by special permit. Right, because we keep repeating the definition. I think we've defined it once. That should be enough. I mean, we should.
I know, but town council wanted me to do this, but I will run it by town council.
Yeah.
I like the way you got it. It doesn't hurt to repeat it.
So he wants us to
Well,
keep
it's-
iterating it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually leaves room for, misinterpretations as you go along. But that's
All right, I will-
because
I
you've
will
defined
ask-
things, you should stick with the definitions. That's my view. And then on item 530.2K, the K.
Yeah,
It says accessory dwelling units shall have a minimum occupancy or rental term. When you say a minimum occupancy, on K?
Yeah, I was looking at A, sorry.
yeah.
I just didn't understand the distinction between a minimum occupancy. I mean, I understand the 31 consecutive days. That's what we want, right? What do we mean by a minimum occupancy?
So you can't, if you could have a rental term or somebody should occupy it, a minimum term of 31 days.
Consecutive days.
But when you say occupy, do you mean like they buy it? Then they have to buy it for 31 days?
Renting it.
Okay, well, we already say that, rental term of 31 days. So maybe we just need to say, a rental term of 31 days. A minimum occupancy seems a little, seems like it's a different standard.
So there are occupancy agreements that are specifically non-rentals, so that could cover that.
Oh, okay.
So
So why don't we just add the term agreement?
you cannot use an occupancy.
Why don't we just add the word agreement after occupancy then? I just didn't understand the distinction. Does that work?
Well, ask the lawyer.
I'll ask the lawyer, he's the one who suggested the language on that one. I will ask,
All right.
don't worry.
Okay, why don't you like that?
Well, because the use and occupancy is really a different thing, it's just someone staying in a place after they've sold it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people stay 7 days, so, I mean, maybe it's called the use and occupancy. That should never fall under this is.
Yeah, I want to make sure we have
I don't think.
clarity
there are
on it, that's all.
All right, we'll check that later.
I will check that, Steve.
Okay.
Anything else?
And then on 770.2, this is the last page, I think. I added the term after, on the first sentence, it says any person desiring approval an accessory dwelling unit shall submit for site plan review, and then I added the term or special permit review, parens, as applicable. And then I think the rest of it kind of holds together. So just a wordsmithing there a bit.
Is that all in the document that you sent?
Yes.
There's just, definitions, making sure we
Yeah, okay.
capitalize things and stuff like that, but I don't think that's really germane here, so.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll look at it, I'll look at it.
No, I think it's in pretty good shape, actually, so,
I tried to separate, what I tried to do is I tried to separate the special permit from the site plan review though. That's what I tried to do under 530.3, we
Yep.
talk about a special permit, and under 770.2C, I try to talk about site plan review.
Yeah, but the last sentence talks about special permit, so that's why I said, or special permit,
I
right?
will look at it, yeah, all right.
The last sentence says,
I see.
yeah,
It
still references,
Okay.
yeah, it still
All right.
references 530.3C, so I think that's all good. It's just a clarification.
Okay.
So just a final comment. Kudos to you and the effort you've been through in pulling all this together and, putting all the different colors on it to get it to a place where I think we're in pretty good shape.
But I wanted to keep, the colors won't appear in the warrant. I mean.
No, I certainly hope
It'll
not.
be the black and the white, but I just wanted everybody to understand the changes we made since it was filed,
Yes,
for.
no, very good.
For the public hearing, and every change we've made along the way that people have asked for.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
It's very well done.
We have worked hard.
Thank you. You've been typing away in there like crazy. Any?
Do you want, Karen, do you want me to send this back to you? I think I sent you the version, and the only note I put was on my comment on the purpose, but you've already got that comment, right? So you don't need anything else from me.
I don't need anything else from you. I got your two
Okay.
emails.
Okay, good.
Anything from the board?
I think you've done a great job, Karen. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Well, other people have helped, so.
No,
You and Patty.
have been.
She done most of the work in there.
And I know you just got through those two other.
Listen,
other
I have a
bylaws
lot
that
of.
we had to change because of the state, so we all really appreciate.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, this is all, this whole thing is the accepted dwelling, how many times every month.
The strangest thing about this, I was just sent about 300 pages from another town planner on stuff that's coming out from the state on this.
Yeah.
Supposedly, the state is going to hold some type of a workshop
We're
meeting.
going, we're all signed up.
Wait, to explain how the towns should write their bylaws.
Oh, there is,
And ours will probably be, not the little ones that you've seen.
March 11th.
March 11th, we're all signed up for it.
Yeah, and.
That's good. It's like shutting the barn
I've
door.
gone to a bunch of these meetings, and still to this day, there's misinformation or something coming and going to different departments from different areas. And I have done my damnedest to try to get a hold of both the AG's office and the Housing and Livable Communities. And I had finally started to get responses from the AG's office, and they said, which towns are you do you work in? And I listed Cohasset, Norwell, Marshfield, and Scituate. And I said, I'd like to see these towns get a really good bylaw. And I asked specific questions, okay? Crickets.
They're not letting
They
you
said,
go to
we
March
will
11th.
contact those towns. That's what they said, we will contact those towns.
They check their.
And that's why I'm curious why you said town council hasn't heard anything. Because I have numerous messages back and forth.
Our town council has called multiple times,
Yep.
and, our town council probably represents other towns as well.
Yep.
But, they continue to think that we're further along than a lot of other communities. And, they continue to say what we propose here is good. So,
Yeah, but they're not asking, they're not answering specific
they're not
questions.
answering specific questions,
right.
which is why they're telling me to keep certain stuff in here. And if we have to change it before the warrant goes to print, we'll change it before the warrant goes to print. But they continue to be waiting for the answers, and which is why we're kind of a little, there's a MAPC or somebody's having a workshop that we signed up for on March 11th. How to write a model bylaw. Well, how do they know how to write a model bylaw if they're not even getting the questions answered?
That's right. So it's really just a messed up process,
It
it
is.
really is.
Like I said, we are hip deep in it, and we'll do the very best we can. I see that we have somebody have their hand is raised on. Chris, you have something else to say? Layla. Yes?
530.2,
Oh,
yeah. Single family dwelling.
no, wait a minute, 530.2, what?
Yeah,
That doesn't vary, okay?
single family dwelling with an accessory dwelling shall not be deemed to be a two-family dwelling.
Yep.
This is for zoning purposes only.
Mhm.
It was made abundant in a meeting yet, it was made abundantly clear to us that a single family with an accessory dwelling is now a two-family for the building code. And a two-family that has
Can you repeat that?
a single family home with an accessory dwelling unit, it would technically be within, would now be considered a two-family for the building code.
Well, the building code is
I'm
different
just,
than
I'm just,
zoning,
I
and
understand,
so when we
it
have.
doesn't,
When we have a lot of stuff, separations and all that kind of stuff, Bob is, it was pointed out yesterday that he's got to start to, you have to start to think about these, because of the building code.
Yeah.
But that's,
Firewalls and stuff like that, yeah.
is it worth just adding for zoning purposes at the end of that line?
No, this is not as bad. It's in zoning.
Wait, say it again?
Just at the end of
I'll
single family
ask,
dwelling,
I'll
read the whole
ask
sentence.
council.
A
I
single
will
family
ask-
dwelling with an accessory dwelling shall not be deemed to be a two-family for zoning purposes.
I'm sorry, what, I missed the reference to that. Where is that?
530.2 MS in Mary.
M, okay.
I'll ask, but I mean, this is zoning, so,
Yes.
That's all it applies to, right?
Again, it clarifies.
Yeah, but. I know. So, anybody else in the room? Just come to here. Come from sir. Ms. Lewis, is she unmuted?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Mary Ann Lewis, 18 Lighthouse Road, Scituate. Couple of questions, and I apologize, Karen, because I don't have the updated color-coded sheet. You had referred to a change in the cooking/kitchen definition. Can you kindly expound on that or be a little more specific, please?
It said preparation and or cooking, and we took out the and.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The next question I had, and I know it's been a long process for everyone, and I think the gentleman in the audience who's been paying attention to it as well. In terms of the process, if someone has an ADU by right, meaning they're the 900 square feet, they comply with setbacks, height, of the height and setback requirements of the building code. Are you still suggesting, are you envisioning that you still have site review over that?
Yes.
Yes, most definitely.
Yes.
Okay, so it seems if it's by right, and again, I point out that the state, what the state promulgated is that there is no additional site review on ADUs that wouldn't be applicable to a single family residential home. Why would you guys have any purview over it whatsoever?
Because all right, I understand what you're saying in the regulations. In the act, it says site plan review is allowed. We specifically asked this question yesterday to town council, and town council says site plan review is absolutely allowed. And so we're staying with that until we can get further clarification from the Attorney General's office.
The reason that I would encourage the board to not require site plan review is that again, my interpretation of it is that, and the premise of this statement is based on something that by the site plan that's submitted to the building department shows that it's compliant with zoning setbacks, zoning height, and the 900 square feet, that the law is pretty clear about the I think that's what they're trying to distinguish between something that's as of right and something that's not. I understand the site review for things that don't fall into that neat category of that square box of those guidelines. But the reason I would caution the board to presume that they have the site review and to include it in this is because there are additional costs and fees associated with that application process and the board site review plan. And I think that that is considered unreasonable when it's pretty clear when they say you can't add additional requirements to ADUs that are fit the by right definition, and you're adding additional requirements by even requiring an application for a site review plan.
So, Ms. Lewis, that is your interpretation. It is our interpretation that we brought to town council, and that town council told back to us, and we are standing firm that we are leaving site plan review in our bylaw right now until we are told we cannot.
All right, I just didn't know if that was the board's desire, if did you guys decide as a majority of board that you want that?
Yes.
It is, it
Okay.
is.
We
All right,
made
well,
that decision.
Yeah, all right. Well, I thank you for your opinion, and I appreciate the opportunity to express mine, and I disagree with the board on it.
So noted.
So the other thing I would encourage the board to do, or through you, Madam Chair, to Karen, is you had mentioned the additional or the clarification on gross floor area, and I appreciate that that's going to be more clearly defined, apparently in the bylaws. I would just make a suggestion that that's defined in the application as well. So whether that's by saying, gross floor area as defined from measuring the inside of the walls, or gross floor area as defined in our bylaws. I think that would be a helpful addition to the application process.
Okay.
In terms of existing permitted ADUs and conversions of permitted ADUs, are you envisioning charging people additional application fees for those conversions to as right by right? I know you referenced first instance, But is,
Yes, there will be a cost for that, yes.
well, again, I would
They don't
encourage,
have to convert. They already have a permit.
Steve,
There's
you
no
were the
re-
guy, that was that just spent
No,
20 minutes
no.
on conversions.
No, those were illegitimate. Those were ones that had no permit.
Right.
These people have permits. They
Yeah.
don't have to go get another one. They've got one.
Yeah, I know, but it would be nice to get a discharge on your property.
There will be a fee for conversions,
Yeah, well,
yes, because it's paperwork.
It's recorded at the registry of deeds,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
special
paperwork.
permit from the town,
Right.
it's got certain requirements that you can get away with.
Yeah.
Now you can say you don't have to have it owner occupied, things like that, so.
Yeah,
So I would,
that's your call, though, right?
I would,
Yeah.
I would just
That's the
note,
individual's call.
I would just
They are
encourage,
not required to convert.
I would just encourage, Madam Chair, through you to the board. I would encourage that the board consider the fact that those legitimate folks have already incurred expenses to go through the permitting process, incurred additional expenses, at the registry of deeds, and are going to have to do so again to record that discharge. So I appreciate that you are considering a fee, but I would suggest that the board maybe consider something that is lower, given the fact that these people have already gone through that process and paid for it.
Julie noted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then on the 31 days, and I know that, I'm just gonna, because this is my last opportunity, at least, prior to town meeting, to again express a strong opinion to the board that we do not limit the short-term rentals to a minimum of 31 days. And my thought process, in which I have expressed before, I think it's an important economic development tool to the seasonal businesses in the town that are a valuable economic engine to the town. We have no hotels. We have one inn with very limited capacity. And I understand that maybe the support for this minimum 31 days may have been based in the notion that there's some concern that, these ADUs are going to pop up all over the place and it's going to turn the town into a frat house. And I would suggest that
No.
as a governmental entity, that the board and we as, citizens and town meeting members always have the opportunity to go back and change that if that fear is realized, or becomes or presents as a problem. But I don't think that we should, and we'll never know that unless we sort of test it, by not having a minimum of 31 days. So I think that we need to think about the economic nexus to this, especially the importance of it in a seaside seasonal community, and given the fact that we do not have any hotels in town. So I would encourage the board, and also a reminder that, the majority of these ADUs, I think it can be reasonably anticipated that the person that's going to be living closest to whoever's in the ADU is in fact the homeowner, although it's not a requirement any longer, but I think that will likely be the case. So I would strongly encourage the board to reconsider that minimal, even if you did it to a week or 2 weeks, like a 7-day minimum might solve many of the concerns for potential problems.
Well, Ms. Lewis, that is clearly in the regulation, in the impetus of this act, is to provide long-term housing, not short-term rentals. We are trying to fix our affordable housing crisis for long-term use. I totally see where you're at. That's an Airbnb thing, and that's not what we are addressing with this bylaw right now.
And this is specifically to ADUs, as we've discussed already, that do you have a single family house, you wanna Airbnb it?
Go right ahead.
There's plenty of other ways to do it,
Yeah.
So I see,
But this is not the vehicle
The board
right now.
feels, as we said before, feels very strongly about it.
I see your point. I just I would add to, dovetail off of that and suggest that so the capacity to sort of finance either the construction of an ADU or for seniors or kids to, families to kind of stay together, might incentivize that. But I would also suggest that it's not just, the that the town lacks the profile of both long-term, shortage of both long-term and short-term housing. And so by not having a minimum, you could address both of those, increasing both those housing stocks that are currently under.
And again,
I
as
actually
the
think
board, we
I
are
think
not
it will.
getting rid of, we are not getting rid of Airbnbs. We are just saying that ADUs cannot be used as Airbnb,
Right.
cannot be rented out for less than
31 days.
31 days.
Yeah.
30 days.
That's it.
And I think if you were to change that number to 5 days or 7 days or whatever, you're going to blunt the ability to provide additional long-term housing. So I completely agree with Patty and Rebecca on that.
Yeah. So thank you, and we will take everything, again, under advisement, and we'll look forward to seeing you. I see, we have another hand raised.
Linda Ferguson.
Linda, can you hear us?
I think she nodded off.
She's still on.
She's gone.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't
There you
unmute.
go.
That's okay.
We can hear you.
I just want to reiterate, that the whole reason for the act is for housing. So I agree with the board on that. And I would also say to Mary Ann too, changing something from 31 days to less than that, Airbnbs are required to register with the state and pay taxes, and there's all kinds of other things that go on with Airbnbs. And our town currently has zero way to monitor Airbnbs or to make sure that they are being registered and paying the proper taxes and things like that. So I think until, such time that we have the ability to make sure that the town, can be reimbursed by the taxes and that they are adhering to Airbnb rules and regulations, that we shouldn't open it up to more. I think we should stick with the intent of the law. I think the intent of the law is designed, for longer term housing, and and especially because they're eliminating a lot of these standard things that normally would belong there. You know what I mean? That normally you would have to adhere to if you were going to just build an Airbnb. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I think that the board should stick with the 31 days. And that's not because I have a hotel in town. I think, as I told you before, 2 months out of the year, we need more housing. I mean, I last Saturday, we had one person in the hotel. So, Airbnbs for 90% of the year are not, short-term rentals are not going to be making a ton of money, whereas longer-term rentals will alleviate the housing issue. So,
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. I think, to your point, seasonally, we need more short-term housing. So it's an opportunity for a community whose seasonal short-term housing stock is not sufficient to support what we have going on here. And I don't know what the board's reason is for the 31 days. Is it a concern about, if anyone could share, like, why what they're concerned about in terms of not having the ability to rent for less than 31 days?
Because I do believe it's in the Affordable Homes Act.
No, it's not in the affordable housing. It has to deal with short-term rentals. We don't want short-term rentals.
Yeah, but
So
why? That's what I'm trying to understand. Why?
because
Like, what's the reason for the rationale?
Ask and answer, because the intent of the law is to make more long-term housing. It is not to make Airbnbs.
So, wait.
If you want to
wait a
address
sec-
We
that,
are not
then
limiting,
do
we
a
are
separate
not limiting
separate law.
short-term rentals, only in ADUs.
I understand that, but it hasn't been answered respectfully, because I'm curious why the board. So I get what you're saying. You're pointing to the intent of the law, but it doesn't handcuff you it allows you to set a minimum rental. I'm asking making an inquiry of the board, what the rationale was behind why they would support something or be opposed to something less than 31 days.
Because we are trying.
We answered that question.
Yeah, it asked me, we are looking for long-term rental housing for people who want to live here, not to vacation here.
So we don't want to consider the seasonal aspect of our community when we have the opportunity to do so?
We could do that as a separate issue. We're not doing that here.
That's not with accessory dwelling units. You can Airbnb your house and live in your ADU, but you cannot short-term rent your ADU.
So you think that?
And that's our stand on that.
Well, I disagree.
Respectfully so, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody else is looking. Okay, we're all set here then?
Yes.
Okay, so we are closing the public hearing tonight.
Don't I need to make a motion?
Yes, to close the public hearing at 8:25.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, we have to have a roll call. That's fine.
Mr. Lavity,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Burbine,
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert.
Yes,
Okay,
Mr. Pritchard.
and Mr. Pritchard.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. God, this is a lot to go to town meeting, maybe.
Vote, God willing.
God willing? All right. Moving right along here.
What's next?
Oh, you have to do your step. It's all mine. This is my part. Oh,
I keep encroaching. Okay, meeting minutes, move to approve. I move to accept the planning board meeting minutes of February 13th, 2025.
Second.
Okay. Second.
Steve in a hurry now.
Second.
Moving us along.
Okay.
I can't breathe.
Bills.
Bill,
Need a roll call.
Do you have any money? We spent any money?
Yeah.
Okay.
I move to approve purchase order 2507-570 in the amount of $928.20 for publication of legal notices in the Coastal Mariner. Purchase order 2507-791 in the amount of $52.45 to W. Mason for office supplies. And purchase order 2507-777 in the amount of $196.43 to J&R Graphics for printed envelope.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, Ms. Baxter?
Mr. Lavity,
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Lewis, Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Ms. Burbine,
Yes.
Ms. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Pritchard.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
all right. So now we'll go into MBTA communities update. We have none.
please.
No new update, and we're still in interim compliance. Been 6 months since we got a letter that said our application was complete.
And you must have it in here.
So we're considering ourselves compliant.
We decided on the majority took that we're
Works for me.
done. So then did anybody liaison?
There hasn't been time.
Okay. That's good time. And then we have our planning.
Planning development, the only thing, I mean, I'm receiving a lot of stormwater permit applications. I agreed to extend the work hours at the water treatment plant on Monday, 3/4 until 7 o'clock because they have a concrete floor. So, and it's a reasonable request and we just asked them not to shine lights on the neighbors.
There you go.
So, we remain very, very busy.
Yeah, it's our meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Unless there's more.
Second.
All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
All right, I'm gonna say yes. Good night, Mr. Pritchard. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Aye.
Have fun.
Thank you.